I'm Hannah, 32 years old. My heart was pounding with excitement as I stood at the airport, my hand clutching the tickets for a vacation with my family. I'd spent every last penny I had to make this trip happen. I was smiling wide, my suitcase packed, and I was ready to create some great memories with my dad and sister Clara. Then my phone vibrated. It was a text from Dad. "That plane's not for you, loser. Take your luggage to the train." My stomach plummeted. I was frozen in disbelief as other travelers rushed by, the full weight of his betrayal sinking in. Have you ever had a loved one completely blindside you like that? I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and let's get into how I handled this moment. I stood in the terminal, my phone still in my hand, my dad's message burning into my eyes. My suitcase, filled with clothes I'd carefully chosen for the trip, felt like a heavy anchor. My legs were shaky as I stumbled to a row of plastic chairs near a coffee shop. Travelers rushed past me, their chatter a dull roar, but all I could hear was my own heart beating. I tried to call Dad, my thumb trembling as I pressed his name, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried again with the same result. My chest tightened with panic and a sharp, slicing doubt. I sank into a chair, the cold plastic biting through my jeans. Then a text from Clara arrived. Her words were cold and clipped. "Stop being so dramatic, Hannah. Just get on the plane." I stared at the screen, my throat closing up. Dramatic. I'd spent months planning this trip, saving every dollar from my job as an assistant manager at a bookstore. I'd wanted to give us a week filled with sun and laughter, a chance to feel like a real family again. And now Clara, my sister, who had always been Dad's favorite, was dismissing me as if I was just a little kid throwing a tantrum. I dragged my suitcase closer, its wheels squeaking on the polished floor. A security guard, a large man named Carl, approached me. "Are you okay, ma'am?" he asked, his voice low and kind. I forced a smile, my lips trembling. "Yes, just trying to figure some things out." He lingered for a moment before walking away. I hated how vulnerable I felt, as if everyone could see the rejection written on my face. I opened my banking app, needing to do something practical to steady myself. My hands froze as the screen loaded. The emergency fund I shared with my dad for family crises was gone. $5,000 wiped out. My savings, my safety net, had vanished without a word. My mind reeled back to when I was 16, sitting on the stairs in our old house in Ohio. I'd overheard Dad talking to Clara in the kitchen. His voice gruff. "Hannah has no drive," he'd said. "You're the one who will make something of yourself." I'd crept back to my room, tears stinging my eyes, and vowed to prove him wrong. I worked double shifts at the diner, got my degree, and landed a stable job. This vacation was supposed to be my proof, my way of showing we could be more than his low expectations. But now, sitting here with an empty account and Clara's cold text, that old wound was torn wide open. A barista at the coffee shop, named Leia, caught my eye. She was wiping down the espresso machine and glanced over, her face softening. She slid a small cup of coffee across the counter. "On the house," she said quietly. "You look like you need it." I mumbled a thank you, the warmth of the cup seeping into my palms. It was a small gesture, but it steadied me, a tiny anchor in the storm. I sipped the bitter, strong coffee and stared at my phone. Clara's text glared back at me. My clumsy fingers typed a reply. "Why would you let him do this?" I hit send, but the 3 dots showing she was typing never appeared. I stood, pulling my wobbly suitcase toward the exit. The airport signs pointed to a shuttle for the train station, and I followed them, my steps heavy. Each step felt like a surrender, as if I was letting Dad win. But what else could I do? I couldn't afford another plane ticket, not after he had drained my account. The bright lights of the terminal faded behind me, and the reality of his betrayal settled in deeper. This wasn't just about a plane ride. It was about every time he had chosen Clara, every time he had made me feel like I wasn't good enough. And now he had taken my money, my trust, and left me to drag my luggage to a train all by myself. The shuttle to the train station was a rickety old van with cracked seats that smelled faintly of stale cigarettes. I wedged my suitcase between my knees, its weight pressing into my shins as I stared out the smudged window. The airport's glow faded, replaced by the dim streetlights of a drab, industrial area. My phone remained silent. Clara's lack of response was louder than any words she could have sent. I kept checking, hoping for some explanation for why she had turned her back on me too. Nothing came. The van jolted to a stop at the train station, a small building with flickering neon signs and a few people milling around. I hauled my suitcase out, the handle slick with my sweat, and bought a ticket from a grimy kiosk. The clerk, a tired woman with deep lines around her eyes, barely looked at me as she slid the ticket over. "Train leaves in 20, she mumbled. My voice stuck in my throat, so I just nodded and found a bench near the platform. The air was thick with the smell of diesel fumes, and I pulled my jacket tighter, trying to block out the chill. I opened my phone again, not to text Clara, but to check my email, hoping Dad might have sent an apology or an explanation. Instead, I found a confirmation from the vacation rental company reminding me that the beach house was ready for check-in tomorrow. My name was on the booking, my credit card was tied to it. I had paid for every detail. The ocean view patio, the extra bedrooms, even the welcome basket with wine and cheese. The thought of Dad and Clara relaxing there, toasting to their plane ride while I sat on this splintered bench made my stomach churn. A sharp, unwanted memory hit me. I was 20, home from college for Thanksgiving, helping Dad fix a leak under the kitchen sink. He was in a rare good mood, joking about my wrench skills, and I felt so proud, like maybe I was finally enough. Later that night, I saw him secretly giving Clara an envelope of cash for her new car, whispering, "Don't tell your sister." I stood in the hallway, invisible, my pride crumbling. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need his favoritism. But now, with my bank account drained and Clara's text echoing in my head, that moment felt like a preview of this betrayal. A man with tired eyes and a faded jacket sat on the bench across from me, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He looked about 40. He caught me staring at my phone and gave a small nod as if we were sharing a silent burden. "Rough day?" he asked, his voice gruff but kind. I hesitated, then nodded. "Family stuff," I said, barely above a whisper. He chuckled, not unkindly. "Isn't it always? My brother once sold my truck to pay his rent. Didn't even ask." His short story felt like a reflection of my own. I wanted to tell him everything, to spill the hurt clogging my throat. But I just said, "That's awful. How did you deal with it?" He shrugged. I cut him off. "It hurt like hell, but I'm still here." His words were a heavy mix of warning and hope. The train's whistle screamed in the distance, and I stood, my suitcase wheels catching on the uneven platform. The man, whose name I never learned, gave me a small wave as I boarded. The car was half empty, its fluorescent lights casting a sickly glow over the worn seats. I found a spot by the window and sank down, the glass cool against my forehead. My phone vibrated and my heart leaped, but it was just a low battery warning. I plugged it into a shaky outlet, watching the city blur past. Clara's silence. Ted's theft. The vacation I'd poured my heart into. It all swirled in my mind, tightening into a knot of fury. I was no longer just hurt. I was furious. They thought they could cast me aside, take everything I had built, and leave me to crawl my way to them. But I was on this train heading to that beach house, and when I got there they would have to face me. The train rattled on, its rhythm a dull pulse against my rising anger. I sat hunched by the window, my suitcase jammed under the seat, a constant reminder of Dad's text. The car was quiet except for the soft snores of a guy a few rows back and the occasional clink of a coffee mug from the dining car. My phone, now charging, lit up with a notification, but it wasn't from Clara or Dad. It was just a spam email. I swiped it away, my jaw tight. The silence from my family was deafening, each unanswered call and ignored text piling onto the hurt like bricks. I opened my social media app almost on instinct, and there it was. Clara's latest post. A photo of her and Dad on the plane, clinking champagne glasses. Her caption was smug. Family first. My face was nowhere in the frame, as if I had been erased. My thumb hovered over the screen, itching to comment something sharp, but I stopped myself. What was the point? She would just twist it and make me look petty. Instead, I scrolled through her other posts, each one a knife twisting in the wound. Beach hashtags, excited emojis. Not a single mention of me funding the entire trip. My chest burned with a mix of rage and humiliation. I had poured everything into this vacation, and they were flaunting it as if I didn't exist. The train lurched, and I caught my reflection in the window, my eyes red and tired. I looked like someone who had been punched and was still reeling. A buried memory clawed its way to the surface. I was 25, sitting in my tiny apartment, counting out cash to lend Dad for his car repair. He had hugged me and called me his lifeline. Weeks later, I found out he had used the money to cover Clara's new apartment deposit. When I confronted him, he just shrugged and said she needed it more. I had swallowed the hurt then, telling myself it was a one-time thing. But now, with my bank account drained and Clara's post glaring at me, I saw the truth. It was never just one time. A woman's voice snapped me back to the present. "Are you okay, hun?" she asked, her tone gentle but firm. I turned to see a motherly figure, maybe 50, standing in the aisle with a toddler clinging to her leg. Her eyes flickered to my phone, still open to Clara's post. I nodded, forcing a tight smile. "Just a long day," I said, my voice thinner than I intended. She didn't push, just gave me a knowing look and moved on, her kid babbling about trains. But her question lingered, stirring up a fresh wave of shame. I didn't want to be the woman falling apart on a train. But here I was, unraveling with every mile. I shoved my phone into my pocket and leaned back, the seat's worn fabric scratching through my jacket. The man from the platform, the one who had shared his story about his brother, was a few seats ahead, reading a paperback. I hadn't caught his name, but his words echoed in my head. "Cut him off. Hurt like hell. But I'm still here." I envied his calm, the way he seemed to have made peace with his choice. Me, I was nowhere near peace. I was a tangle of fury and grief, picturing Dad's smug face and Clara's dismissive laugh. They thought they could take everything, my money, my effort, my place in this family, and I would just take it as always. But I was on this train heading to that beach house, and when I got there I would make them see me. I wasn't invisible anymore. The train's hum grew louder, vibrating through my seat as I gripped the armrest, my knuckles pale. The window showed only darkness now, my reflection a faint ghost staring back. I couldn't shake the image of Clara's champagne glass, her smug caption, "Family first." My fingers. Photos scrolling to a picture from last Christmas. There we were, me, Dad, and Clara, smiling in front of a lopsided tree. I had baked cookies and hung the lights, trying to make it special. Dad had patted my shoulder and said, "Good job, kid." I had clung to that moment, thinking it meant something. Now it felt like a lie, a prop in a play where I was never the star. A new notification popped up. Another post from Clara, this time a video. She was already on the beach, laughing as Dad tossed a frisbee. The rental house I had paid for loomed in the background, its white shutters gleaming. Her caption read, "Living the dream." My breath caught, sharp and jagged. They were already there in my house, using my money, while I was stuck on this train, my clothes wrinkled and my heart shredded. I pressed play, unable to stop myself. Clara's voice rang out, bright and careless. "Wish you were here." The words felt like a slap, a cruel taunt disguised as cheerfulness. I turned the volume off, but the image of Dad's grin burned into me. His ease with betrayal deeper than his text. I stood up, needing to move, and shuffled to the dining car. The fluorescent lights buzzed, casting a harsh glow over the chipped tables. A teenage girl sat alone, sketching in a notebook, her pencil scratching softly. She glanced up, her eyes meeting mine for a second before she dropped her gaze back to her page. I ordered a tea, my voice barely audible, and slid into a booth. The mug was too hot, scalding my fingers, but I held it anyway, needing the pain to ground me. My mind drifted to another memory, one I hadn't let myself touch in years. I was 22, fresh out of college, begging Dad to come to my graduation. He had promised, but on the day itself, he was at Clara's art gallery opening instead. "It's a big deal for her," he had said over the phone, with no hint of an apology. I had sat in my cap and gown, scanning the crowd for a face that never appeared, my diploma feeling heavy in my hands. The train hit a rough patch, jostling my tea, and a few drops spilled onto the table. I wiped them with my sleeve, my movements mechanical. The girl with the sketchbook was still there, now shading a drawing of a broken clock. I wondered what her story was, what had brought her to this lonely train car. Part of me wanted to ask to find some connection, but my own pain was too raw, too consuming. I pulled out my phone again, opening my banking app, hoping maybe I had misread the balance before. The screen loaded, and there it was. Zero in the emergency fund. My savings, my backup, was gone. Dad hadn't just taken my money. He had taken my security and my trust. And now he was living it up with Clara, posting it for the world to see. The man from the platform, the one with the faded jacket, walked into the dining car, his duffel slung over his shoulder. He nodded at me, taking a seat a few tables away. I wanted to tell him how much worse it had gotten, how Clara's posts were tearing me apart. But my throat was too tight. His story about his brother felt like a distant echo now, his strength a world away from the fury boiling inside me. I wasn't there yet, not even close. All I could feel was the weight of being cast out, the sting of being worthless in their eyes. The train's whistle wailed, long and mournful, as we neared the coast. I was almost there, to the house I had paid for, to the family that didn't want me. And when I stepped off this train, I would have to face them. Their laughter, their lies, and the truth that I had never been enough. The train screeched to a halt at the coastal station. The platform was bathed in the orange glow of sunset. My suitcase banged against my legs as I stepped off, the sea air sharp and salty. I had made it to the beach town, to the house I had paid for, but my stomach was twisted with dread. Every step toward the rental felt like I was walking into a trap, yet I kept going, fueled by a stubborn need to face Dad and Clara. The streets were lined with cheerful pastel cottages that mocked my churning anger. I checked my phone for the address, my hands slick with sweat, and followed the map to a winding road by the shore. The house came into view, its wide windows gleaming in the fading light. It was exactly as I had envisioned it when I booked it. White clapboard siding, a wraparound porch, the sound of the ocean roaring nearby. My chest ached at the sight, knowing they were inside, living my dream without me. I dragged my suitcase up the gravel path, the wheels catching on stones, and paused at the door. Laughter spilled out, loud and carefree, slicing through me. I knocked, my fist heavy, and the door swung open almost instantly. Dad stood there, a beer in his hand. His smirk hit me like a slap. "Took you long enough," he said, stepping aside as if I were a late delivery. I froze, my throat tight, and lugged my suitcase into the foyer. The living room was bright and cluttered with takeout boxes and beach towels. Clara was lounging on the couch, her yellow sundress bright, scrolling on her phone. She barely looked up, just muttered, "Hey, Hannah," as if I were an afterthought. The air smelled of sunscreen and pizza, and for a second, I felt like an intruder in my own plan. I set my suitcase down, the thud echoing in my ears. "Why did you do it, Dad?" I asked, my voice low but steady. He raised an eyebrow, taking a swig of his beer. "Do what?" "The plain thing. Lighten up. It was a joke." "Joke." The word landed like a punch, my vision blurring with heat. I turned to Clara, hoping for something, anything from her. "You think this is funny too?" "Yes." She sighed, rolling her eyes. "You're so sensitive, Hannah. We're just having fun. Relax." My hands clenched, nails biting into my palms. I wanted to scream, to flip the coffee table, but I held it together, my voice shaking. "I paid for this, all of it, and you left me at the airport, took my money, and now you're calling it a joke." Dad chuckled, a sound that made my skin crawl. "You've always been so serious," he said, leaning against the counter. "Clara deserved the plane ride. She's got a big life, big plans. You're fine grinding away at your little bookstore job." The room spun. His words were a blade twisting deeper with every syllable. Clara smirked, still glued to her phone, and I realized she wasn't just complicit. She was enjoying this. My eyes stung, but I refused to cry, not here, not in front of them. I stepped closer to Dad, my voice barely a whisper. "You think I'm nothing, don't you? You've always thought that." He didn't answer, just shrugged. And that silence was worse than any insult. It was confirmation. A lifetime of his dismissal crystallized in one moment. I turned away, my legs trembling, and noticed Dad's jacket slung over a chair. A folded paper with worn edges peeked out of the pocket. My gut told me to grab it, so I did, slipping it into my hand as I moved toward the kitchen. I unfolded it under the harsh light of the pendant lamp, my breath catching. It was a letter, handwritten in my mom's careful cursive. My heart pounded as I scanned the first line. "Harold, please treat our girls equally. They both deserve your love." The date was from a year before she died, when I was just a kid. My hand shook, the paper crinkling. She had seen it even then and begged him to change. And he had ignored her, just as he was ignoring me now. Mom's letter trembled in my hands. Her words were a faint echo of a love I barely remembered. I stood frozen in the kitchen, the beach house's warmth now suffocating. Dad's laughter from the living room grated on my nerves, each chuckle a fresh wound. I shoved the letter into my pocket, my pulse hammering, and walked back to confront them. Clara was now sprawled on the couch, flipping through a magazine, while Dad rummaged in the fridge. The normalcy of it all, their complete disregard, made my skin burn. I took a breath, my voice raw. "I found something," I said, holding up the letter, my fingers creasing the edges. Dad's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. "What's that?" he asked, but his tone wasn't curious. It was sharp, almost accusing. Clara set her magazine down, her lips curling into a faint smirk. "Oh, what now, Hannah? Another scene." Her words stung, but I pressed on, unfolding the letter. "It's from Mom. She asked you to treat us fairly, Dad. She saw how you favored Clara, and you ignored her." Dad's face darkened, and he slammed the fridge door shut. "You don't get to dig through my things and lecture me," he snapped, stepping closer. "Your mother was soft, always coddling you. I did what was best." His words hit me like a slap, twisting Mom's memory into something weak, something he could easily dismiss. I staggered back, clutching the letter, its ink smudging under my sweaty fingers. "Best," choked out. "You stole my money, humiliated me, and now you're trashing her?" Clara laughed, a sharp, cruel sound that echoed off the walls. "God, Hannah, you're pathetic," she said, standing now, her eyes glinting with something vicious. "You think Mom's little note changes anything? Dad's right. You're just a winner, always playing the victim. Earned my place. You're just nothing." Her words were a blade, slicing through every hope I had clung to, every moment I had thought we could be sisters. I looked at Dad, waiting for him to correct her, to say something, anything. He just crossed his arms, his silence louder than her taunts. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I backed toward the sliding glass door, my chest heaving. "I paid for this house," I said, my voice breaking. "I gave you everything, and you're standing here spitting in my face." Clara rolled her eyes, tossing her hair. "Then leave, Hannah. Nobody asked you to play martyr." Dad nodded, his expression cold. "You want to be here. Like it. Stop whining and ruining our night." I stumbled onto the porch, the ocean's roar drowning out their voices. The letter was still in my hand, crumpled now. Mom's plea was reduced to a relic of a family that never existed. My knees buckled, and I sank onto the steps, the wood rough against my skin. The stars above blurred as hot, unstoppable tears spilled over. Clara's laughter, Dad's indifference, Mom's ignored words. They swirled in my mind, a storm of betrayal that left me hollow. I was utterly alone in a house I had built for them, with nothing left but the weight of their contempt. I sat on the porch steps. The ocean's roar, a distant hum against the ache in my chest. Mom's crumpled letter lay beside me, its words a faint pulse of her love drowned out by Dad's cold dismissal and Clara's venom. My tears had dried, leaving a gritty sting in my eyes, but something else was stirring, a spark of defiance flickering through the haze of hurt. I wasn't going to sit here, broken, while they laughed inside the house I had paid for. Not anymore. I stood, my legs unsteady, and brushed the sand from my jeans. The night air was cool, sharp with salt, and it steadied me as I walked back inside. Dad was at the dining table now, cracking open another beer, while Clara scrolled on her phone, her magazine discarded. They didn't even glance up. I moved to my suitcase, still by the door, and unzipped it, pulling out my laptop. My hands were calm and deliberate as I powered it on and opened the vacation rentals booking portal. The screen glowed, showing every reservation I had made. The dolphin tour, the fancy seafood dinner, the kayak rentals, all in my name, all on my card. I logged in, my fingers hovering over the cancel button. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with a quiet resolve. I had spent months planning this trip, dreaming of a family that didn't exist. They didn't deserve it, not 1 second of it. I clicked through each booking, canceling them one by one, the confirmation emails pinging softly. The dolphin tour was gone, the dinner was gone. I felt a strange relief with each click, as if I was shedding a weight I had carried for too long. Dad's voice cut through the silence. "What are you doing over there?" he asked, his tone lazy, as if he were humoring a child. I didn't look up, my eyes fixed on the screen. "Taking care of something," I said, my voice even. Clara snorted, not bothering to lift her head. "Let her sulk," she muttered. I ignored them, opening my phone next. I drafted a text, my thumbs steady. "Since I'm a loser, I'm done paying for this. Good luck." I sent it to both of them, then blocked their numbers before they could reply. The act felt final, like slamming a door I had left ajar for years. I closed my laptop and stood, my suitcase still open at my feet. The house felt different now, less like a trap and more like a stage I could walk off. I needed space to think, so I slipped out the front door and headed down the street, the town's lights twinkling against the dusk. My feet carried me to a small cafe, its windows warm with golden light. The sign read "Sand Brew," and I pushed inside, the smell of fresh coffee grounding me. A familiar face caught my eye. Leia, the barista from the airport, wiping down a counter. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "You made it to the coast," she said, her smile genuine. I nodded, managing a small one back. "Yeah, barely." She slid a mug of coffee my way, unasked, and leaned across the counter. "You look like you're carrying the world. Want to talk?" Her kindness, so simple, cracked something open inside me. I took a sip, the warmth spreading through my chest, and said, "I just cut my family off financially. I mean, they don't deserve it." Leia's eyes softened, but she didn't pity me. "That's heavy," she said. "But you're here. Standing. That's something." Her words landed like a lifeline, reminding me I wasn't invisible, not to everyone. I glanced at my phone, the screen dark now. No texts from Dad or Clara. The silence was both terrifying and freeing. I wasn't done yet, but I had taken the first step, and it felt like waking up after a long, bruising sleep. The cafe's hum of conversation wrapped around me, a soft shield against the storm still raging in my chest. Leia leaned on the counter, her eyes steady, waiting for me to say more. I took another sip of coffee, its bitterness grounding me, and set the mug down. "I've been carrying them my whole life," I said, my voice low but firm. "Dad, Clara. Every time I thought I was enough, they proved me wrong. I'm done." Leia nodded, her expression a mix of respect and quiet encouragement. "Sounds like you're finding your line in the sand," she said. I pulled out my phone, the screen still dark from blocking Dad and Clara. My thumb hovered over the banking app, A new idea forming, sharp and clear. I logged in, navigating to the shared account settings. My heart pounded, but not with doubt, with purpose. I removed Dad's access entirely, locking him out of what little remained in my other accounts. Then I opened a new savings account, one just for me, transferring the last few dollars from my checking. It wasn't much, but it was mine. A small fortress I had built from scratch. Leia watched me, her rag paused on the counter. "That's a big move," she said, a hint of a smile in her voice. I looked up, meeting her gaze. "It's the first one that feels like mine," I said. She nodded as if she understood more than I had said and went back to wiping down the espresso machine. I closed the app, my shoulders loosening. The weight of their betrayal was still there, but it was no longer crushing me. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to them. I was choosing for me. My mind flicked back to a moment I hadn't thought of in years. I was 30, sitting in a hospital waiting room, my hands clammy as I waited for Dad's surgery to finish. I had taken a week off work and turned down a promotion to be there, bringing him coffee and magazines. When he woke up, he had barely thanked me. His eyes already on Clara's text about her new job. I told myself it was fine, that family came first. But now, sitting in this cafe, I saw it clearly. I had been giving to people who never gave back. I stood, leaving a few crumpled bills for the coffee, and stepped outside. The night was crisp, the town streets quiet except for the distant crash of waves. I walked toward the beach, my sneakers crunching on the sandy path. The letter from Mom was still in my pocket, its edges worn from my grip. I pulled it out, the moonlight catching her faded cursive, and sat on a driftwood log. My eyes stung, but I wasn't crying anymore. I unfolded a napkin from the cafe, borrowed a pen from my bag and started writing. "Mom," I began. "I'm trying to be the daughter you believed in. I'm done letting them dim my light." The words flowed, raw and unpolished, a promise to her and to myself. I folded the letter and napkin together, my hands steady now. The beach stretched out before me, dark and endless. I walked to the water's edge, the tide cold against my ankles, and lit a match from my bag, a leftover from a candle I had packed. The flame caught the papers, their edges curling as Mom's words and mine turned to ash. I let them go, the embers drifting into the waves. It wasn't closure, not yet, but it was a start, a line I had drawn in the sand, just as Leia said. Back at the cafe, I caught Leia's eye through the window. She waved, a small gesture that felt like a tether. I didn't go back inside. Instead, I turned toward the town, my steps lighter, my breath even. The house, Dad, Clara, they were still there, but they didn't own me anymore. I slipped my phone into my pocket, its silence no longer a wound, but a choice. I had burned my past promises to them, and in that quiet act, I had begun to rebuild my own. The morning sun slanted through the cafe's windows, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. I sat at a corner table, my coffee cooling and untouched, my suitcase tucked under the bench. Last night's fire on the beach lingered in my mind, the ashes of Mom's letter and my own words a quiet marker of the line I had drawn. I had cancelled the vacation bookings, blocked Dad and Clara, and locked them out of my accounts. Now the world felt hushed, as if it were holding its breath, waiting to see what came next. My phone vibrated, a new number flashing on the screen. Clara. She must have borrowed a friend's phone. I let it ring, my thumb hovering, then sent it to voicemail. A minute later, a text came through. "You're really doing this? We're stuck without the tour. Fix it, Hannah." My stomach twisted, not with guilt, but with a strange, cold clarity. She wasn't apologizing, wasn't even asking. She was just demanding, as always. I deleted the message, my hands steady, and sipped my coffee, its bitterness sharp on my tongue. I overheard snippets from the cafe's patio where a group of tourists grumbled about a cancelled dolphin tour. My dolphin tour. Their voices carried frustration, but I felt no pang of regret. I had paid for it, planned it, and they had thrown it back in my face. Let them scramble. I leaned back, watching the barista, Leia, refill a sugar jar, her movements quick and sure. She caught my eye and nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the space she had given me to breathe. My phone buzzed again, this time a voicemail notification. Against my better judgment, I played it, keeping the volume low. Clara's voice crackled through, tight with anger. "Hannah, this is ridiculous. You can't just pull the plug on everything. Dad's pissed, and I'm not covering this. Call me back." The message ended, and I stared at the screen, my chest tight. Her entitlement, her refusal to see me, was like a mirror of every fight we had ever had. I saved the voicemail not to respond, but as a reminder of why I had acted. I stepped outside, the coastal air warm and salty, and walked toward the town square. The streets bustled with vacationers, their laughter a stark contrast to the knot in my gut. I passed a small art studio, its sign advertising a drop-in painting class. On impulse, I went inside, the smell of turpentine and canvas wrapping around me. The instructor, a wiry woman with paint-splattered jeans, handed me a brush and pointed to an easel. "Just let it out," she said, her voice gentle.